clock on the vault.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on a 3-day weekend, you not only had to set it, but you had to pull this little pin thing out
Uh-oh.
so that it would go for the extra day. And every once in a while, somebody forgets to do that.
Don't worry. There we go. We just now went live, so you know, it didn't get it. Okay. Five o'clock on the dot.
All right,
Let's do this.
let's start the meeting. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from the December 15th, 2020 meeting.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes,
All right,
2020. I second that.
okay, I've got a motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, with Jessica abstaining. All right. Item number 3 on the agenda is the continuance of the consideration and vote on the variance to the minimum lot size and setback requirements to 403 West Kaskaskia. Rita Moore is the applicant.
Since the continuation of the public hearing, can you open it for me?
I'm sorry?
Since this is a continuation of the public hearing, can you open it for me?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I need a motion to open the public hearing.
I would make the motion.
And I've got a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Public hearing is now open.
Thank you. As you previously stated, this is a continuation of, for variance 2004, but it will now be 2101, just so we're all clear. This is for lot 403 West Kaskaskia. This lot is actually too small to be a buildable lot according to our land development ordinance. It needs to be 6,000 square foot, and the lot is 5,334 square feet with a lot width of 42 instead of 50. For our last meeting, the motion was to have the applicant submit a survey, and a survey was performed and submitted by Greg Grant RLS Surveying, which shows the buildable area, which is the lot with the area within the setbacks where the house can be. And it has a footprint of the proposed house on it as well. It complies with the established setbacks of actually the 6 required setbacks on the side. And I'm sorry, it complies with 6 foot on the side instead of the required 5 actually, so it has an additional foot on the side. Let's see here. It meets all the minimum requirements to be a single family structure. And I also included the standards of variance that we covered last meeting for reference in case we need to revert back to those. And I think that is all I have.
Anybody want to make any comments? Public want to speak?
You want to go ahead? Go ahead.
Will you
Michaela.
state your name and
Yes.
address again, please?
I'm Michaela Rollins, this is my husband Paul Rollins, and we live at 405 West Cascade. So right to the west. So, really just too small of a lot to build anything. Looking at the picture, it looks okay. But if you physically go look at the land, there's a lot of issues that are going to be in the way of that. You know, like Alan mentioned, the trees and things of that sort. It's something that, you know, we're gonna have to stare at every day. And it just seems like too tiny of a lot to just shove a house in there for profit. You know, there's gotta be with the builders, you know, and I can't speak to them, but I don't think they're gonna live in it. It's a small area, and both Alan and us did offer her money for said property. And there was no counter offer, there was no nothing, it was just a flat denial. So there's no like discussing it or going over it, she hasn't even taken care of it, like Alan's the one that's been maintaining it this whole entire time. I mean, there's just a lot of different like, issues that kind of go into this here. It's just a very small lot, as you guys know.
We're concerned about our curb appeal. When we bought that house, we liked because of the openness and everything that we was looking for when we bought the home. Now let's take a dwelling in there, it'll be less than 15 feet off our east side wall.
Right.
We just feel that it will greatly appreciate the investment we've made. And it'll just look stuck in it, look like being thrown in there.
Yeah, kind of, we're in the city, you know, where they just stick houses in any which way. Like we said the last, you know, meeting, that it's a very developed area already there. You know, our house physically faces Taylor Forge. And we're the only house facing Taylor Forge on our block. Because then you have Allen who faces Diamond, and then the house on the other side. So you stick another house in there, and there's not really access to get in and out of that dwelling. And as Alan brought up in the last meeting, to pull in at a 90-degree angle back there, there's not enough room for that. And you can't block it because you deafen ball, or I can't remember the word, I think it's deafen ball, or trash service to get through there. Plus, you're gonna have to take that shed down and do a whole bunch of other like issues.
There's no sidewalk to bring you to Kaskaskia. Our sidewalk, we got one that runs to the east, to the edge, right to the edge of our property. When they came out and did the survey, I was there, they dropped the existing property stake right at the edge of our sidewalk. And even with their variance going inside there, yeah, I know the trees are not an issue, but for them to build, they're gonna do something with those trees.
It goes right through, like the property line where he put the stake goes right through the big oak trees. So however that comes out in the wash later, I mean, something I'll have to, unfortunately, you know, not meaning like monies or anything, but I mean, like, we'll have to do something to move them out of the way. Plus, being that close, is that a fire hazard? I mean, I don't know how it works there, but like, because if something were to happen to that house, it would take ours and Alan's duplex out too. Does that make sense? You know, because there's so many trees and different things in that area, and it would be so close to his back door. I mean, I'm sure he'll speak to that, but there'll be no yard for his tenants whatsoever, just through there. So all we can say is, please, I know you guys have been hard about your decisions, but like, this is something that's gonna affect us on the daily from now on.
And we would like to ask a question, how would we go about finding out? Because we knew what our property was appraised before we bought it. Now, would that change our values and our appraisal value with a new dwelling 15 feet off our inside?
Right, it's gonna take away that wonderful cute little look that's through there.
You know, I don't know, our dog kind of taking over that yard anyway. He likes to play with it.
Well, he runs on that side yard there, so if they were to drop a fence or do something right there, you know, that would just take eat up a little bit of his area, which is not, I mean, too big of a deal, but how does that work? If you do, you know, let this variance go, can they then put a fence there? Like how, I mean, I guess I don't,
Fence can go to your property line.
okay, that's what I figured. So then
Another
we can just drop them
question
there.
was, because like I was reading here, okay, they disconnected the utilities. How big is the job is that going to be to reestablish utility hookups? if they've been out since 2012 or 2007, how does that
We'll have to redo all that, right?
affect us? And with impossible building, just like I said, the inconvenience of knowing that there's going to be strangers right outside our, right outside our bedroom window.
Which is not something we can help, but again, it's kind of like, it's more of a profit thing than a development thing. Like, yeah, they're developing a house, but you're only gonna get maybe like a mom and a kid in it, or like a super tiny small family. It's not, you're not really developing the area. You're just, in my personal opinion, you're just kind of shoving a house in there because you can.
Thank you for your time.
Good for thought.
Alan Heyer, I own the property at 108 and 110 North Diamond. Surveyed, that answered a question. Didn't solve much, but it answered the question, and I appreciate you guys taking that initiative. If I may, I'd like to pass out these photos, okay, Chairman?
Yeah.
You guys have to share. I think I can do it without one. In photo number one, that is taken from the, behind my duplex on the northeast property corner. And you can see the flags. The tree that I planted years ago is that nice oak tree right there, and it is, give or take, 3 feet on the 103, 105, which is it? The address? 103 property. So, took care of it, maintained it, raked a bunch of leaves, but I think it is what it is. If you look on photos 2, 3, and 4, number 2 is to the left-hand side of the west property line. Photo number 3 is center line on the property line. And photo number 4 is to the right of the property line. And as you can see on that side, the property line runs directly down the middle of these 30-inch trees. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to go to the trees for a few minutes. If the building would be constructed the way it is right now, it would be about 3 feet from the trees on the west property line. And that can't happen. You'll have a tree in the ground on the house before you ever do anything. I'm opposed to squeezing that little house in there. If they really, really want to go ahead with it, I would suggest that they shrink the size of the house to get to the 968 square feet that's allowed. Make it more linear, so it's not as wide. And be allowed to do it. I don't know that there's anything in the LDO that stops it other than that I don't want it done. And we made an attempt to try and purchase the property. She's convinced that it's going to get a retail price of more than we were willing to pay, and that's her prerogative. So the reason I keep going to the trees, you guys approve it for a variance, okay? This guy bails out. The next guy comes in, and I'm gonna stick my foot in my mouth. The realtor's goal is to sell the property. The owner's goal is to sell the property. None of them have to disclose a thing about the trees, okay? They think they're buying a lot they can build on. Well, then all of a sudden they buy the lot. They go down to City Hall, it's got a variance, so it's gonna get a permit. Now all of a sudden they bring in a piece of equipment, and then not myself so much, But they're gonna have to figure out how to mediate who owns the tree and who's gonna take the tree down, who's liable for the tree when it falls on something. And a little bit of guidance, assistance, how do we get there from here would help a little bit on this situation. In my case, they're free to take that tree down, but they're not getting on my property because they don't have an easement. So therefore, anything that lands on my property is gonna cause me to have heartburn. And it's not that I don't want to work with them, it's just that I know how these things go. The realtor sells it, everybody claims no disclaimer. They got the variance, the next thing you know, there's a house going up, and then the two of us and the new property owner / builder, now we all get to go to fisticuffs over how this gets resolved, when it'd been nice to have a little bit of resolution before the variance is issued. So, again, I wish we could get some help here with trying to resolve this. Understand what the LDO says, I can read it, and I thank you for getting it surveyed. But it's gonna be a major problem down the road that we have to deal with if it's done. Any questions for me, gentlemen? Lady?
I think you're done.
All right, I don't see anybody else from the public that wants to make a comment, so I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make such a motion.
I have a motion, and I have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay, public hearing is now closed. Comments? Questions?
I can't really speak to Alan's question regarding the legality of, who deals with trees, et cetera, but I do have a fair amount of understanding of building setbacks, the intention for building setbacks, et cetera. The minimum on the typical is you'll have a minimum, and that does have to do with fire code to answer your question. That's where the 5 foot minimum comes. And then jurisdictions will then go a step further one of two ways. They'll require a minimum of 5 foot, but then let's say an aggregate total of 25. So one of them has to be 20, or you have a 15 and a 10, but that prevents from overbuilding on the lot. The second thing that you do is you have a minimum lot width. So you have a minimum lot width plus a maximum house width. So that kind of gets you then your aggregate that is going to be more than 10 feet. So what this variance assumes is, well, I just need a minimum of 10 feet aggregate, and I don't think that is a safe, I don't think that we can work off that assumption. I think it's the intent that you have more than aggregate of 2 minimums. So I say that to say, it is the minimum, you can go so close on one side, but the other side has to be bigger. And that, to me, that keeps from overbuilding a lot, which I think is categorically what we have here. That's why we're so close to the minimums on both sides. That's my comment just on the understanding of general reasons for having building setbacks. There is one, the minimum of fire, which is 5 feet per modern building code. But then there's typically an aggregate where you want more than just 2 minimums. You want one side to be bigger. And that is to prevent overbuilding. That's, I think, what we have here is the situation of proposed overbuilding. So for that reason, I'm not in favor of the variance. I think this part of the code is very clearly written, and I think it is written to save property value for adjacent properties. I think if this builder wanted to build this house on a lot, he just needs to look for a lot of a different zoning district. If, per square foot, you want to pay less for the lot, it just needs to be in a different district, a district that accommodates that. So that is that was one of the questions that was asked, is how do we protect our property values? And we do that by having different zoning districts. There are different requirements within those districts. So to me, I think this is a well thought out part of the code, well thought out part of the LDO, and I'm not in favor of the variance in this situation.
So I am just seeing side yard setbacks. I can't speak to your aggregate setbacks. I'm not seeing a north side, south side, east side, west side. I'm just seeing a 5 foot setback and looking at this here, foot 8 setback on both sides. So if I'm reading all of this
I'm
correctly,
speaking to, in lieu of an aggregate, what we have is a minimum lot width. So building this, typical code will either have a minimum lot width or, you know, somehow, so I guess I was speaking to the absence of an aggregate. I'm used to seeing that, you know, you can't do two minimums. So just to clarify, thank you for giving me that opportunity.
My feelings are that unfortunately it was platted way back in the day. Not all the lots were platted to comply with our current standards, unfortunately. And we have, this isn't the only lot in town that we have that is smaller than normal. And to deny the landowner the right to do something with that property because of something that happened in the early 1900s or the 1800s, I don't feel that that's proper to say that you can't do something with this lot just because we came along later and said, here's the minimum. This house will set within the lot. It will meet the setbacks within the ordinance on that lot. Yes, the lot's not real wide. Yes, it's pretty close to Allen's lot. Yes, it's pretty close to their lot. We've got that all over town in certain situations. So my feeling is that since this house will fit within that lot, what we're really doing is granting a variance for them to build on a lot that's smaller than what our current LDO says. So I have to say I'm in favor of that because of that. And I don't want to deny the landowner the right to to sell their property because of what we've done currently as opposed to what was done way back in the day.
Do we know if there was a structure on the property when the LDO was adopted in 1976?
Yes. There was a trailer on there previously.
At that time?
so in 2012.
Yeah, torn down in 2012.
So there was one there. That's my feeling. Does that have any other comments?
8 foot narrower than what the minimums are. This seems like an awful lot of narrow, to take away from that lot size. And I'm not as concerned about the square footage of the lot as I am about the size, the actual width of the lot. So I'm really mixed on this one. I can see both sides of the coin, but my gut tells me that we have these regulations for a reason. And that's part of what you were saying, protect the communities. So I don't know, I'd have to have somebody convince me one way or another.
I would be more inclined if it were in the footprint of a previous structure. Structure with a foundation. At the time the LDO was adopted, to not disadvantage the property owner at the time the LDO was adopted. So I would agree with Steve's concern, once, you know, taking that into consideration. You'd hate to disadvantage that property owner, you know, taking into account a structure that was there at the time that these codes were adopted, so they weren't disadvantaged by having their property, you know, at that time. Now, if they're advantaged by us granting a variance to codes, and now they get a bigger structure than they had previously, have we favored one economic gain over another? So to me, I'm more inclined if it's within the shadow of an existing structure. Again, to go all the way back to that time frame, just to, you know, not disadvantage that property owner at the time that LDO was adopted. I'd be more comfortable. That would mitigate my concern with the disadvantaging the existing property owner.
Also, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, no. Go
I'd
ahead.
like to note that if this was a normal sized lot, we could not control if they go to 5 or 6 setbacks, they'd have to comply with the 5 foot. So if this was normal size, they could build to the 5 foot and it could be bigger. But, so they are complying with the standards, it could be a lot bigger, it could be a lot closer, but that's just, stick that out there.
All right. I guess it's time we voted. I will make the motion to approve the variance on the lot size as requested. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Do I have a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
3-2. All right.
Has the applicant changed, or was it always, it was more?
It was always this morning.
It was always Rita? Okay. I just know that the documents came from, well, basically were done by the developer.
Yes.
But that was always, okay, Rita.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the Community and Economic Development Director Report.
So we ended last year with 451 building permits, and we're off to a whopping 12 so far this year, which isn't actually too bad with, having 2 holidays events.
Yeah.
We had our comp plans out, RFPs, they were due the 16th. We had 14 submissions. And we would like to thank Mr. John Scott for dedicating his time to review those with us. He went through every one of them with us. And we're actually doing 6 interviews on Thursday for some of those companies, and John Scott is graciously dedicating his time once again all day Thursday to help us out and sit in on those interviews. If anyone else would like to join, you're more than welcome to. It'll be a fun-filled day, I'm sure. And we are also, hopefully by the end of this week, gonna post a couple of job openings for the community development office, the assistant, because someone left me. And,
Yes, she looks down.
and we're gonna do a full-time code enforcement officer as well, so hopefully that'll work out. But other than that, that's all I have.
Okay.
Stop bothering you with that system.
No.
Anybody have anything else? All right, not hearing anything, I'll take the motion to adjourn. I've got a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
You bet.
Steve, just for the record, not for the record, but just for conversation.
Just a second.